my name is Erica. I'm the National Digital Campaigns Manager for the Working Families Party. I helped create this program, which we have taken on the road, and we've gone all over the country, training up thousands of women and non-binary folks, trans and non-binary folks, to run campaigns. Oh, very cool. Looks like there's two of me. Oh, there's. Hey, Amy.
Wow.
Comes up as Erica Person. I don't know why. I guess because you're the.
Oh yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, because I used your link.
Okay, great. Cool. So I guess let's get started because it's 12:05. I think we have critical mass here. So just very short introduction. I was just starting to tell people about the program itself. But yeah, so Women Run Campaigns was just sort of born out of this need for there to be more women, trans, and non-binary campaign managers. We realized a lot of, this is a very male-dominated space, very white-dominated space, and a lot of people don't get any sort of formal training to structure their thinking, and a lot of people also, campaigns aren't built for a lot of the responsibilities that traditionally women need to fill, right? Like women often are the primary caretakers of children or older adults, and campaigns are extremely demanding, which means that less and less women are actually get the training to fill these roles. So we sort of just saw a need and decided to fill that need. So we're going to go over just some basics about how to run a campaign, what is required. Normally this training is a day and a half. So please bear with us with no more time to waste. But Amy, go ahead and introduce yourself, and if you want to talk a little bit about the program.
Yeah, my name's Amy Castanel. I work with Erica at the Working Families Party. I am on the national digital team, and I do comms for the Southeast region of the United States. Erica explained what Women Run Campaigns is. We are really committed to doing trainings for women across the country because we know how essential it is for women to fill every role in a campaign, from like the actual candidate all the way down to like a person who's a volunteer knocking on doors. And we know that there's like a real barrier for women, particularly women of color, women who have like marginalized identities, to get jobs on campaigns, because it is a very like bro-y culture. So hopefully you'll get a taste of what we do all throughout the year from this training, and then get in touch with us if you want to come to another training later on.
Definitely. When things become normal.
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen. Apologies in advance. I'm not going to do like the presentation mode because then I can't see my own notes. But you all should be able to see my screen here. So this is our agenda. We're going to go through the theory of change in campaigns. We're going to go through calculating a win number, which I'm going to really try and like slide right through. And then if we really want to dig into it, we can. But I'm going to go over it like a whirlwind because it's really math based. And we don't need that in this Friday morning. I don't care for it. Anyway. And then Amy is gonna go over how we win, the different departments of campaigns and like what building a team looks like. And then while we're winning, setting culture as a manager and self-advocacy as a staffer, and what that entails and things you should be thinking about. So first of all, what is the Working Families Party? Some folks might know it. But we're an independent, people-driven political party fighting for a real democracy at a time when our livelihoods are dictated by the powerful few. And I mean every word of that sentence because it's going to actually translate into the next couple slides here. When I say we're trying to build a political home for peoples and communities to come together and repair our nation to be rooted in equity, compassion, and solidarity, we run campaigns like that. So that's why I'm not just giving you the plug for the sake of giving you a plug. Our goal is to build an authentic, multiracial, and feminist party that has a mass base of working class supporters that can elect independent-minded people to office on a program of transformative change that can provide them with the structures, resources, and capacities to deliver. I was joking with Amy earlier today about this, but I feel like the following first section can like all be deleted and just be replaced with "be honest," but we'll get to it. So let's start with what we know. The platforms that most candidates run on are out of touch with the realities that voters face. There is a disconnect. So you can see in my notes here, as of 2015, 72% of Americans were in favor of raising the minimum wage, 91% of Democrats, 68% of independents, 50% of Republicans. Yet our federal minimum wage is $7.25 per hour. And on average, women make 83 cents on the dollar. So this is usually part of like a bigger program where we talk about the need for representation. But I also want to like ground us in thinking about why we see these realities, right? And we know them as normal working people, and yet candidates do not run on them. So what's wrong? Like,
sorry to interrupt you. Yesterday was Black Women's Equal Pay Day.
Well,
it's August.
Oh wow. Great. So what's wrong? White supremacy. But a broken political system that values patriarchy, white supremacy, and economic exploitation, right? It rewards those things. So I'm tackling two things here a little bit, both why more women, trans, non-binary folks, people with any marginalized identities need to be running campaigns and need to be running as candidates, but also talking about why so much of the representation we have already leaves us wanting. So these are key intersections of WFP's work. And this is where I'm going to dig in a little bit. So conventional wisdom around campaigning looks something like you've got your base of supporters who no matter what are with you. They will vote Democratic, let's say 35 to 45% of the electorate. Then there's a base who no matter what are going to vote Republican, say another 35 to 45% of the electorate. Conventional wisdom holds that these elections are won by whatever campaign wins over the small group of voters who are in the middle, the swing voter. And in this conventional wisdom, what swing voters want is roughly an average of these two ideological extremes. They want everyone to have access to education, but they don't mind if it's privatized. They don't like the idea of people being denied health care, but they don't want handouts for the poor. So what does this lead Democrats to do? First of all, ignore their base. But second, it leads to compromising, to splitting the baby on everything, to basing your campaign around middle of the road ideas that actually don't speak to either side. most importantly, this kind of strategy isn't rooted in any kind of values, and it actually fails to communicate a real vision that connects with voters and tells a genuine story about the candidate. We identify these problems, we know them, and when when candidates refuse to run on them because of moneyed interests, or this mythical belief that they're like people crave a more moderate message, you're actually completely missing the point. Um, so it's about values. Here at WFP, and generally most value-driven progressives really want to tell you to never do that. If you take away one thing from this training, it's that compromising policies doesn't win over voters. Voters don't respond to policies. And I know that sounds absolutely wild, but it's true. They respond to values and vision. When we connect, like, I'm going to give an example here. Like, people don't like gravitate and love AOC because they understand the granular details of the Green New Deal, but they trust her to push forward the Green New Deal. Why? Because you know that she values working people. She knows she's honest with you. She values honesty. She values directness. She values understanding what goes in to making your paycheck at the end of the day. You get that sense from her based on who she is and the way that she speaks and the values that she puts forward, right? When we connect with a candidate over their values, we understand what drives them and why they make the decisions that they make, both on the campaign trail and in office. This becomes extremely important when a candidate's in office and faces any number of obstacles. And if they're insurgent progressive candidates, those obstacles, of course, increase tenfold. So rather than making promises that we might not be able to keep, progressive insurgents need to be focusing on showing the public that we follow through on our values. And no matter the obstacles, we will fight for the things that we say that we will fight for. A lot of time that doesn't look like a policy platform. But if we can make voters understand the things that drive our candidates, that drive the decisions that they make, the issues that they advocate for, it doesn't matter how many obstacles are in the way once that candidate gets into office. By understanding a candidate's values, we trust that they will make the right decision in the interest of our shared values. So basically, to sum it up, progressive run campaigns based on values, unafraid to tackle the problems that we identified in modern social infrastructure and political discourse, right? That's the goal here. That's the takeaway. We have identified these intersections up here, and our goal is to run values-driven campaigns that head-on tackle these problems that we've identified in modern social infrastructure. Okay. I know that was a lot, but now actually translating that into something winnable, right? So calculating a win number. And again, I apologize for the brevity of this section. So what is a win number? It's your North Star, especially for field. And I am a digital person. I run digital campaigns, and I will tell you right here, right now, that digital is not a supplement for field. Field, knocking on doors, there's no, and I know that this is like actually horrible advice in the time of COVID. It's extremely impractical and not what you want to hear, but there is no replacement to talking to voters face to face. I'm not suggesting that you do that by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just saying, like, evergreen, when, you know, this is hopefully all over at some point vaguely in the future, knocking on doors is how you win elections. So a win number, especially for field, is the projected, especially pertinent to field, but it's the projected number of votes needed for your candidate to win the election plus a little buffer. So conventional wisdom, right, is 50 plus 1. So 50% of the electorate plus 1. So this is how you calculate a win number. Step one, you are going to determine the turnout of your election. So the most important thing here is you need to pick the most similar election in the district you're running in. More similar elections are, of course, more useful than less similar ones, right? So this is an example, right? What is the most similar election in for like a 2020 primary? It would be the 2016 primary because it's a presidential year. Generally, like you'll see trends in turnout for midterm, off year, and presidential primaries. You also probably want to just leave. You might want to adjust that up a little bit to account for new people moving in, and newly activated folks. It's always better to overestimate than underestimate. It is a little bit more difficult to calculate win number for a special election. That definitely requires a lot of engineering. Amy lives in Atlanta, Georgia, and is very familiar with special elections, and we can probably talk a little bit more about it at the end if we want. So step two, actually determining the win number, right? So I'm sorry, that was projected turnout. This is the win number. When basically your win number is 50% plus one of projected turnout, what you anticipate turnout to be. However, being involved in enough recounts, I want to strongly encourage you to think of it as 51%. So that would put us at 4,590. For a race with 3 or more candidates, it isn't 33 plus 1. What you do, and I can unpack this a little bit more later, you imagine how badly your weakest opponent could possibly do, and then you subtract that and take 51% of the remainder. So I know that gets a little bit dicey, a little bit complicated, but yeah. So this is the part that I'm going to try and like just breeze through. An ID, how do you reach those people, right? How do you convince those people in your win number to vote for your candidate? You ID them. And there are many ways of IDing people. I can ID them at the doors. That's of course the most traditional way to do it. You can do it via text, SMS. You can get positive IDs. You can do it via ManyChat on Facebook Messenger. So there are lots of different ways to do this. But it's not someone that you like. It's not someone who's like nice to you at the doors. It's not someone who you hope will vote for your candidate. It's someone who actually says yes or probably yes to a hard question, like, will you vote? Yes. Your field program is all about IDing who your supporters are and turning them out to vote. Typically, you'll want to set your win number as the goal for your IDs. So campaigns generally track this with a number scale, 1 to 5, 1 being most supportive, 5 being the least supportive. Your 1s, who are super supportive, they are definitely going to vote for your candidate, and 2s, probably supportive, are the folks you want to turn out. 3s are undecided and folks that you want to try to persuade on your side. 4s are probably opposed. 5s are definitely opposed. They're typically out of your universe and you shouldn't talk to them again. Like, don't waste your time on people who are like, I'm not voting for your candidate, like, she sucks, so you typically want your ID goal to be your win number plus 33%. No matter what you do, not every ID is going to show up, right? So like they might be like, yes, I am definitely voting for your candidate, and then they will just not turn out to the polls. So really make sure to add some buffer in there. Ooh, and I am already low on time. So the ID goal here is 6,105. And just as a reminder, the projected turnout was 9,000. Your win number is 4,590, so about 51%. Your ID goal is 6,105. I know this is really granular, and I'm very sorry. So then you want to determine your target universe. So basically, since not everyone will be home, or say yes, you need to talk to a lot more people than what your ID goal is, which is your universe. Your target universe should be 2 to 3 times larger than your win number. Oh, I just said that, great. So your target universe is about 12,210. So that means you need to talk to, you're going to try to talk to 12,210 people, right? Like you're gonna at least try to make some outreach to them. And how do you do that? You do that with a plan. So you figure out how many shifts, like I said, how many positive IDs you need, how many positive IDs / shifts can you get, and you can do that through many ways, right? I can't believe I didn't mention phone calls, but paid doors, volunteer doors, phone calls, text can be a way of getting positive IDs. So yeah, definitely you want to throw all these things at the wall to get those IDs. But yeah, that's basically, so I know that is a lot. And I'm going to pass it over to Amy now to talk about building out the different departments of a campaign that facilitate both talking about those values and getting you to your win number. And Amy, I'll do the slides for you.
Oh, cool. Yay. I was just talking about that movie like a half an hour before this. I hate that guy. But I'm happy about this. So when you are putting together your campaign, you have to think about like all the many different kinds of roles that you are going to need to fill to get to the win number that Erica was just talking about. And these are just a few of the many roles that can exist on a campaign. I want to highlight kitchen cabinet because I feel like that's one that not everybody knows what that is, and it's kind of like an odd sounding thing. It has nothing to do with kitchens. It actually comes from our former president and genocidal maniac, Andrew Jackson. He had this group of advisors and friends that he talked to, like basically more than he talked to like the US like official cabinet. He like asked his little friends what to do instead, which we're not saying that you should have a group of friends that just like yes you to death and tell you what to do. But the kitchen cabinet is basically like a group of people, like trusted advisors who represent like different parts of the district or different areas of your life that can really advise you when you get really bogged down in like the like, I don't know, the morass of a campaign. Like you're getting a lot of like conflicting information. You're looking at social media, you're hearing things from people. You don't know who necessarily to trust. And so the kitchen cabinet should be people filled with people that you actually do trust. People who are like close friends and family, people who have like sometimes differing political views from you, people who have the same political views as you, but are sort of like a devil's advocate type of person. Somebody who is really, really, really like a policy wonk in an area that you're not an expert in, but they are. Like that kind of person you would want in your kitchen cabinet to help you make decisions and choices that will keep you in line with your values and keep you connected to community. And you're not just being like, you know, run all over the place by being confused. And I feel like the other ones on this list are fairly straightforward. Chief thank you note writer is super important, especially if you're on a campaign where you don't have a ton of money, like your budget's not enormous, and so therefore you have a lot of volunteers. You want to thank volunteers like as often as possible in as many ways as you can possibly imagine, and therefore be good at writing thank you letters to volunteers, to donors, to people you see in the street.
A note on kitchen cabinet. I'm actually in a kitchen cabinet right now, just as a practical set of advice. But the candidate, she is really, really great. Not not an expert on messaging, but I'm, that's my job, as specifically for the kind of messaging that she's like running her campaign on. So that's why I'm in the kitchen cabinet. Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome.
Just so, yeah.
You can tell us all about what it's like in there.
No.
Great. You already win. You're good at being in the kitchen cabinet. You're not revealing secrets. And you also want to be really clear about what the expectations are for each role. And I mean, this is true for certainly if you're the one who's doing the hiring and you're like hiring people to work on your campaign or to work with you on a campaign. But also when you're applying for jobs and you're looking to see like, I want to join this campaign, I want to join this organization, whatever it is. If they are not clear about the role that they are hiring you for, and it seems very like amorphous, you really, really want to like hammer down on what the details are of the campaign, because it makes everybody's lives easier to know like, this is how I can be successful in this job. And if you don't know how you can be successful in the job, then the honest truth is that you never will be. And you will always feel bad. And who wants that? We feel bad enough as it is. This is also a big, huge question to answer. This is dependent entirely on like what the budget is and how big the campaign is. If you have if you're running like a large statewide campaign, then you can obviously hire and pay a lot more people than like a city council race where you maybe can only have like one campaign manager who's paid and then everybody else is volunteer. But you want to pay people whenever you can. You want to be able to pay people a living wage and cover healthcare if you can. All the things that you would want in any job are the things that you should be trying to achieve in these campaign jobs as well. They may not be like long-term and permanent jobs, but they're still jobs and people have to give up a lot in their life to do this work. And so you want to make sure that you're being like as aware as possible of people's needs and meeting them when you can. And in terms of like deciding who to hire for like a paid role versus volunteer role, you really want to be looking at like, what are the things you need the most in this campaign? Campaign manager, yes. If you have the money to hire anyone, you should definitely be hiring a campaign manager, because being a candidate and your own campaign manager is pretty much impossible. You want to hire somebody to work on fundraising, because that's like a huge part of campaign work, is getting people to give you money so that you can run the campaign. And I mean, as you saw, there's like a long list of a million roles that we can and can't fill. So just like be strategic is what I will say, and be honest about what you need. Again,
just to add to that, the first role you should really consider hiring, doesn't matter if it's volunteered or paid, is a treasurer. You want to get your campaign finance like straight from the get-go.
That's true.
That's true. Yeah. But yeah, the reason that I'm in a kitchen cabinet as a comms person is because it's a city council race and they are not going to hire a paid comms director. So I'm doing it for free. Anyway.
It's okay. The thing is, like, you also want to have volunteers on your campaign. Like, if you only were paying people, then it would be a really like sad campaign. Volunteers not only do they bring like, the work that you need to get done, but they also bring like enthusiasm for the candidate. They talk to other people about it. They're like always ready to like go above and beyond, because they're like in it for the love of the game, not just because they're like getting paid. But you should still thank them.
All the time. Also, like, if everyone is if everyone is paid, then you're have like a Bloomberg status operation.
You actually are Bloomberg. So get out. So once you have like hired all the people for the campaign and you're ready to go and hitting the streets, then you want to make sure that you are actually like taking care of the people that you hired, cultivating a culture that is supportive. And I mean, we talked about this at the start of this presentation, but campaign culture can be really incredibly toxic for lots of reasons, one of which is that, white supremacy and men. And I mean, we see it all the time in other areas of work, but because campaigns are such like a short time frame, the intensity of the things that happen in there can be extremely, I don't know, volatile. And it can really, you know, set you up for success or set you up for failure based on like what the culture of the campaign is. So yeah, what do campaigns actually value in their staff? All of these things that are in this little cloud are true. Like when you're looking to hire people, you want to have people who have experience as a volunteer or as a person who's worked on a campaign. You want to have people who have ties in the community. You want people who have like relevant language skills. So like if you're running a race and like 50% of the population speaks Vietnamese, and two people apply for a job and one of them speaks Vietnamese, you probably want to hire the one who speaks Vietnamese, because unless you're out there speaking Vietnamese, you're really going to miss out on literally 50% of the people that you need. And that win number doesn't change just because the languages don't align. Actually, there was a question in here that I'm going to answer now because it is incredibly relevant. Anonymous attendee says, I have around 5 years of experience in issue campaigns. Any tips on transitioning into candidate campaigns? I think I'm just answering this now because it's relevant to what I was talking about just now. But since you have experience working on campaigns in general, I mean, I would highlight that when you're talking to, like, when, you know, you identify a candidate or a campaign that you want to work on, I would absolutely highlight your past experience and tell them upfront, like, you know, this is the first time I'm ever really trying to get into electoral politics, but I'm, you know, having a passion for the candidate is definitely important, but also having experience that can be like translated is going to be just as important. And so you're actually in a very good position. Also, if you have been working on issue campaigns that are relevant to that candidate into the area of work that they're interested in doing, then it looks really dope for them to be like, actually, my campaign manager has been working on this for X, Y, and Z years. Then they look like real stars. And so you're bringing actually a lot to the table. So perfect. Thank you. So yeah, how do you market yourself? You want to write your resume and cover letter to reflect the job, not all the stuff that you've ever done in the history of your life, because I'm sure that's all meaningful and beautiful, but like for the job, you want to say like, I've worked on these issues, I've done this, I've done that, I've raised this amount of money. Be as specific as possible, because when people are looking at resumes, they're literally just like scanning and skimming and not necessarily reading all the nuance and detail. So if your resume is just a bunch of paragraphs, I would go ahead and rewrite that to be much more concise with like bullet points. Another reason to do that is because you also want to keep it as short as possible. You want to try and get it on one page if you can, because people have to go through a lot of resumes. And so even if they're diligent and they want to read every detail of every resume, a lot of times people are printing these things out and things can get lost. And so the second page of your resume, which has all of your most relevant experience, could be just like lost in the sauce. And then you have no job. You just have a really long resume. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I just want to add to that, like from like a campaign manager perspective, right? Campaigns, people will try to like tell you this myth that like everyone on a campaign is like 100% skilled and qualified and like there because like they have like all this experience. That's not true. Like that's just simply not true. Campaigning, by the very nature of it, is testing everything and seeing what works. So your experience is valuable. Your experience is very valuable, and you saying like really critically thinking about what you can bring to the campaign, like a campaign manager should like will respect that. And as this is a campaign manager training, and one day when you all go off and run campaigns yourself, like I want you to keep that in mind, that campaigns are about learning, and so you need to give people the opportunity to learn and not like be angry at them for it. Like you need
Absolutely.
to that flexibility. So yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, you want to be working on campaigns where that's a value that they hold. Particularly, I cannot stress enough, if you are a woman of color, a woman at all, but a woman of color, a person who has any kind of like marginalized identity, because we already know it's hard in general to get a job, period, end of sentence. But if you're trying to get a job on a campaign, there's a culture of like, we will hire this white man because he says that he can do it and it's fine, versus like anyone else who, like, you know, I get hired for a job, and if I'm not like out the gate, like raising $15 million and like getting a bunch of endorsements and getting placed in like the Washington Post or whatever it is, and then I fail at something, even if it's something small, even though campaign culture, as Erica described, should be about like testing and trying and doing these things to see what works and like all constantly changing the formula, there is still this idea that like you have to be better than other people in order to like succeed. And so if you are entering a campaign that has the values of like, I'm looking at your past experience and recognizing that you have a value to bring to this, then they're also potentially, hopefully, thinking like, all of that experience is useful, and therefore we're going to use that experience to like test things that have never been tested before, try things that have never been tried before, and win in a way that isn't always like the most straightforward way of winning.
Yeah, which I think leads us to the next one. I know we have like only about 10 minutes left.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, be kind to yourself. We'll say, what, I think we're sharing these slides, no, or not?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
People will see this.
Yeah. There you go. This is sort of just on, this is always the question. So,
yeah. How much money do these jobs pay? And yeah, they should not, for a full-time campaign manager job, you should not be making less than $3,000 a month. And if it's a really big race, the price can go up on that. A lot of them are dependent on like where you live. If you're running a campaign in like Des Moines, Iowa, you're probably going to be closer to that $3,000 a month mark than if you were running a campaign in New York City. But it is definitely important to know like the general range of like what these jobs pay, so that when you get an offer, you're not being, you know, taken advantage of. This is a great tip. Oh, sorry. This is a great tip for any job search really, but like looking up the Form 990 to find out like what the highest paid person makes, and look at how much money they like a for-profit company's annual revenue is, and then you can set your price based on that. And just as like anecdotal advice, I would say, having been on both sides of a hiring process for campaigns and for nonprofits, even at the most like well-meaning organization or campaign, they're still like trying to protect their budget, right? So like they want to get the best person for the job and pay them a good amount of money so that they can like attract that person. But they also have to think like, I'm hiring this person and I want to hire these 10 other people, so therefore I have to put the price somewhere around here, right? That's how much money I can pay this person. And there's a range. They're going to offer you the lowest part of the range so that they can get more people into the queue. You don't have to take the lowest part of the range. And in fact, in your mind, you could be thinking like, honestly, like if you hire me, you're going to be able to like raise more money because the campaign will be better and therefore everybody can eat. So just always like try not to think, because I feel like this is a thing that women experience a lot, is that like we're like, oh, I love this campaign, I love this candidate, I want to do this, I don't want to like take advantage of them or like take more than I need. But the reality is like there's a ton of money in politics. There's like, we should be living in a world of abundance. You should ask for the things that not only that you need but you want, and get them. And so like never short sell yourself just because you're like enamored with a candidate or a campaign or organization.
People exploit you for your passion. Yeah. You want to do good work, but you are also doing work. Get paid for
it. Please get paid.
And pay people for it. If you are a campaign manager, pay people for it. Anyway, I know that it's hard, but like, you know, the money is out there.
It is definitely out there. I mean, there's more money than you could ever even possibly imagine out there. That's the thing that really makes you want to vomit. And these are also things that like are not always written out. You don't always think about them when you're asking for any kind of salary or applying for a job. Sorry, my cat is being a jerk. But these are also things that are important for your life as a human person who's living. So you want to make sure that there's like some kind of time off situation. If there's a union, can I join it? What's it like? If you're in management on the campaign, you probably can't join the union, but even just knowing that there is a union is important to know, because you want to know how that interacts with your job. And it helps you like figure out like the kind of culture you can be having at work. Are there opportunities for mentorship and growth? Like, if I take this job, am I going to like learn something that helps me move on to something else? Or am I just going to be like stuffing envelopes for, 90 hours a week? That's a good question. Is there health insurance? Like, what if I get sick? Lord knows there's a global pandemic. And health insurance could not be more important now or ever, but certainly now. So like, make sure that you have all of these things answered. And if they don't offer any of this stuff, then by God, make sure that how much you're getting paid pays enough for you to get that stuff for yourself.
You can also, there are ways to get health insurance to people who are short-time, like not full-time employees. That is possible. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And when you're putting together your little dream team, these are just some like caveats or things to remember that you want to make sure that you have. And when you are on the team, you're always going to have, oh, sorry, I was just going to skip past it. Okay. But yeah, I mean, we know that we want to have like a diverse array of it, basically like in the same way that you put together a kitchen cabinet, when you're building your campaign team, you want to have like a diverse array of opinions and views. You want to make sure that people are like, all the stuff that we just said earlier, seen and heard, and, pay attention to what people need. And when you're in the places, in the spaces, you definitely want, because we know that campaign culture can be really toxic. This is just some advice that we give to people who are doing this work, to like always, if you find other folks on the staff who are in leadership or just other staff members who are similar to you in any way, like you're like, oh, you're not a white man, just like me. Definitely, I mean, lean on them, but don't like overburden them with like everything that ever happened to you. But I mean, you can trust your instincts about how that works and use social cues to like not take advantage of people who are also in the same workspace. So they're also probably struggling with the culture. But trust your instincts, know that like, if something feels bad to you, it's probably bad. And you should probably find someone to talk to, either like in an official capacity. Not all campaigns have like HR, which is an issue that happens on campaigns a lot, that there's no like clear line of like, who do I report an issue that I'm having with my supervisor or with another staff member to? And so at the outset, you can maybe ask about that. But if you are working there and you just don't even know, you can definitely lean on other people that you trust who are on the campaign, but also just trust yourself and know like, I know I can talk to this person because they've listened in the past to other things. I know I shouldn't talk to that person because they're part of the problem, that kind of thing. And know that you are not like losing your mind when things go awry, because it's entirely likely that that's what's happening. Your experience is real. This lady is telling you to carry yourself with the confidence of a mediocre white man. And Erica started out in the beginning of this talking about how like, that is generally the culture of campaigns, is that there's like tons of actually not that experienced, not that skilled, mediocre white men who are doing these jobs and have been doing them and fail up all the time. And so like, definitely feel confident in the fact that like, even the fact that you got hired to do any of these jobs is proof that you are exceptional. You're bringing experience and a voice that is necessary and needed. 51% of the country are women. Therefore, whatever idea this mediocre white man has is probably wrong anyway, because he doesn't know what he's talking about. 51% of people think differently than him. So like, trust yourself and know that like what you're bringing is super valuable.
Look, there are some absolutely fine white men. That's fine. This is not about them. The campaigns are built like by default for, people who can be in any space without fear of being alone in that space, who can drive or walk late at night, who have the flexibility to go anywhere geographically at the drop of a hat, right? Like who don't have to worry about children, who don't have to worry about family, who are usually are not partnered themselves. It's, you know, single, childless white men thrive in campaigns because they have the flexibility to and the privilege to. So when you're know that there is a place for you in campaigns, it just requires a hell of a lot of resilience in self-advocacy. And like that's what this program is about. Like, you can do this, and when you keep moving up the ranks of campaigns, like when you're trained on this and you keep moving up and up and up, when you're eventually campaign manager, make sure that the campaign that you are running, that campaign culture has the same flexibility and environment for other people like you to thrive.
Yeah. Definitely be in touch with us. We are going to share the slides, so there's more information in the slides. Feel free to like look at them and get in touch with us if you have questions or want to know more about women-run campaigns and be involved with WFP. You can text right now WFP to 30403 and join our list, and then you'll be hearing from us all the time. Eric and I are both on the digital team, so you'll be hearing from us especially. And we are great, so there you go. I don't know. I have no idea if we have time to answer any of these questions. No, we do not.
I mean, we technically have the room for 8 more minutes. Yeah.
Oh, we have 8 minutes. Oh, cool.
Yeah. So, how is vote by mail in quarantine changing the ID number? That's a really great question. Your ID is still, and from everything that I've seen, it's still pretty much the same, you know. But like you're still there's still like an expected like turnout. But what I really honestly want to tell you is we actually don't know, and I don't think anyone knows, because we've never seen vote by mail on this scale in any modern campaign. So that's going to be something that like we definitely need to consider. Treasurer is usually a paid position. I mean, it totally depends on your campaign itself, like whether you're even paying other
anyone. You know, but I do think you're right. Like treasurer is usually a paid position. It shouldn't be unethical, because the work that the treasurer does is essentially like reporting the money that comes in and goes out to the campaign, including their own like the money that they're getting. So it's not like you're hiding anything or being like obfuscating.
Sorry, so many questions. I'm really sorry we're not going to be able to get to any of these.
I know.
Not to all of them.
I'll answer Wendy Baum's. I'm sorry if I'm saying their name wrong. You're running for local city council. Congratulations. Where your goal is to get less than 600 votes to win. Your budget is probably going to be less than $2,000. So you're planning to pay for materials and a website and design, but we'll have volunteers for all roles. You plan to have 2 to 3 core volunteers. Should you be aiming to recruit more than that? I would say, like, if you can, honestly, if you can recruit, particularly since like design work and like building websites and stuff, a lot of people have those skills, even some people who don't even live in your district. So you could potentially recruit volunteers for doing some of that graphic design work for the campaign, and then you wouldn't have to pay so much of the budget towards that, and you could put more towards materials. You could put a little bit towards, I mean, anything else. You could put a little bit towards running ads to recruit volunteers, honestly.
Yeah. Let's see. Do you have any advice on making sure you're paid equally as a woman? Girl. I had a hard time figuring out a number to ask, because most campaign managers don't post salary. Also check Glassdoor. There doesn't seem to be a lot of data. I'm going to present my screen one more time, because we did sort of gloss over this part, which is important. But Amy started to get into it a little bit, but it does really depend on the race and location. And I will say, like, check how much money has been spent in the races themselves in the past. Because there are some school board races, right? Like that, they spend maybe like 3,000, and then there's some school board races where people spend upwards of a million. Like, so definitely check that out. A full-time campaign manager should be making, $3,000 a month, like Amy said. Bigger races can be more like 5,000. Really big ones can be more. The higher profile the race, the more money you might expect to be paid, especially presidentials and Senate races. I hope that answers your question. It does depend on what job you're doing and the level of experience, but for campaign manager, that is usually the highest paid position on a campaign.
Yeah. And Michelle says, I have 15,000 voters in my district. Do I need all of these positions? Definitely not all of them. I mean, I think you need you need some key positions like treasurer, you need a campaign manager. You'll need, particularly now in this COVID moment, you're going to need somebody who's able to do like social media and digital. You will likely need a volunteer to help with some kind of like field hybrid that people are doing now. So like people who can make phone calls, people who can send text messages, those kinds of things. But you don't need an exhaustive list of volunteers. I would say focus on getting like the campaign manager, the treasurer, somebody to help you with like fundraising. And after that, you'll be like finding people who want to volunteer in your campaign, but based on their interest in your campaign. And as they come in, those people aren't empty vessels that have no experience, or they're coming in with nothing. Like they usually come in with I can do X, Y, and Z. I'm really good at, quilting. Then you got a quilt volunteer. Great.
Also keep in mind, I've been a volunteer comms director on races that I have had the capacity to support, but did not have couldn't pay me, or maybe could pay me, but I was you know what, I'm gonna volunteer my time, because I also don't want that. Paid work is also you have to really, you're on the campaign then, right? And sometimes it's a little for me personally, I'm not saying that you should do this, but I'll be a volunteer comms director, just sort of filling that position a little bit, because then my life doesn't revolve, the sun doesn't rise and set on this candidate for me in my life personally. But also keep in mind that you can be, people can do multiple roles. It's not advisable, but your campaigns manager could also be your comms director. Your campaign manager, there are so many races across the country in which, for a local city council race, where there's only one person on that campaign,
yeah,
and it's the campaign manager, and they're doing everything. They are the treasurer, they are the comms director, they are sending out the emails, they are talking to the press, they are staffing the candidate. Yeah. So yeah, that's also something I would just flag.
mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions?
Oh yeah,
we have 1 minute.
we have 1 minute. Oh my god, I answered one question from someone who asked when we were doing the full Women Run Campaigns training, and so I put that, I wrote it out, but I basically said stay in touch with us, because we will probably not be doing one for the rest of this year, because there's a lot of elections between now and November, and we just don't have the capacity. But we will be in 2021 back at it, so get at us. And this last question from an anonymous person says, they're doing the work of a campaign manager, but have not specified with a candidate that's their role. And so do we have advice for women on how to start the conversation of receiving the title? It depends on your relationship with the candidate. I mean, I would assume that if you're doing the work of a campaign manager, for a candidate, you're fairly close to this candidate. Like, you know them, you know all about their life. You're like in their like swimwear, like all the time. And therefore, I honestly would just like tell them, I'm your campaign manager. That is what I'm called.
Yes.
They need you more than you need them, honestly, at this point. You're running the campaign. So, like, if they say no, then you say, peace out. I'll work for somebody else who will call me the campaign manager. I mean, you definitely need to recognize your own power in that situation. Like, that candidate super needs you.
Yeah.
Is that candidate your mom or something? Like, you can't talk to them?
It's time. But basically recognize your power because you have a lot of it. Go forth and be awesome. Thank you all for attending our session.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Yay. Oh,
Okay.
all right. Talk to y'all later. Bye.